Hey, what's up everybody? So today we're going to go over Starchasm Nyx. We're going to go over her overall performance in the meta and whether or not she's worth the pull for you. First, let's talk about her basic gameplay so you know what's going on. So Nyx is basically an ultimate button. Without the ult, she does pretty much no damage. Basically, one of the most important things to get is SP on her. The main way you're going to get SP is her charge attack, which you'll be able to do with the claw meter. So just multiply the amount of claws you have by 1.5 and that's the SP you get. For example, if you have 6 claws, that's 9 SP. And once you have enough SP, you just hold down the attack button and you're done. So Starchasm Nyx actually has a passive that directly synergizes with Herrscher Bunny, and that is basically you get more claw meter during the ult, and that is literally dependent on 45 individual hits of ice damage. So this passive was pretty much made with Herrscher Bunny in mind. Not only that, an ice elf would help as well. Generally speaking, the recommended team composition for her is Herrscher Bunny plus Azure Empiria. So the execution of this team is going to be pretty much identical to any other team where you line up all of the ultimates. And then after your burst, make sure you do the mix paint and switch back to Nyx to farm up SP since she is so SP dependent. That's pretty much it for gameplay. Let's talk about her place in the meta. So the first thing I want to do is compare her performance against the current ice damage dealers. This is currently a hot topic in the community, and I thought it's probably best if I go over this first. So when we think about where an ice damage dealer is most important, we think of the 2 abyss bosses that have ice weather, which are currently Benares and Huodo. Now Nyx's performance on each of these bosses is pretty good. You'll be able to probably promote in Red Lotus for each boss. Now notably against Huodo, HOR seems to do better still. And against Benares, well, because the temperature is going so high, we already know the entire server sleeps because it's such an annoying boss. Actually, all 3 of the ice damage dealers are probably going to be retaining. So what this effectively means is, against these 2 abyss bosses, nothing actually really changes. Which in itself is fine because we can still see more Valkyrie diversity for these 2 bosses. However, Nyx actually has a much wider boss coverage than both Argentite and the Herrscher of Reason. I don't see many people talking about this, but Nyx actually has one of the widest boss coverages in the entire game. A good portion of this is because of the fact that she's a quantum type, but also because her damage numbers are just dummy thick. Now besides the 2 ice weather bosses, we can also see that she has a top score on both the Quantum Emperor and Homu. And believe it or not, she seems to do a lot better than the Herrscher of Thunder on Lightning Lobster, as far as my runs have gone. So clearly her damage is top notch, and there's really no taking that away from her. Ironically, we're probably not going to be using her on ice weather bosses as much as these quantum bosses. So it's actually not that great of an idea to compare her to the other 2 ice damage carries. She just has the added benefit of being able to handle those bosses. So considering these 3 bosses, I think Nyx actually does have the top score, unlike the 2 ice bosses that we talked about earlier. Being able to use her on 4 to 5 bosses is pretty damn good, as most Valkyries are only used on maybe 1 or 2. So if we look at boss coverage alone, I think that Nyx outperforms both of the other 2 ice damage carries by a wide margin. One thing I didn't mention is that there's a pretty good chance that MiHoYo is going to release a puppet boss just based on what's going on in the story. And there's a good chance there's going to be Soul Link involved. The reason why I say this is because one of her skills has a unique property of breaking Soul Link. Now personally, I find it very strange that they put this in when no current bosses have a Soul Link mechanic. Of course this is all speculation, but let's just say I wouldn't be surprised if they released a boss like this in the future. But let's focus on the bosses we have. So despite the fact that she can compete on all of these bosses, she actually doesn't have a huge lead on any of them. So in other words, she's not really mandatory if you have solutions to all of the bosses that she covers. Here and there she might be the best option, but overall you're not going to feel like you're dead without her. Next, let's talk about her gear. Now a lot of people are saying that she's very gear dependent, and there's some truth to that, but if we're just talking about Red Lotus retention, I think Anna is actually completely fine. So Anna actually has a lot less damage, and the other problem with Anna is you have a lot less SP regeneration, which you're definitely going to feel. Regardless though, I think she's strong enough as a Valkyrie that you'll have a fighting chance in Red Lotus, even if you don't have these signatures set. Now the other thing is Scotty fine as a weapon for her? It's fine if you already have it upgraded, but I wouldn't upgrade it just for Nyx because it's just strictly worse than her signature weapon. The good thing about Scotty is that you get a considerable amount of SP regen, which she desperately needs, but the main problem is Scotty's damage output is just way worse. Just keep in mind the more gear you skip out on, the worse she's going to be, and the more the alternatives are going to overtake you. The other thing to consider is that her supports really do want the gear as well. So if you don't have gear for Haxor Bunny and you don't have the signature gear for Azure Imperia, and let's just say you're also using Anna Scotty on Nyx, well, let's just say you're probably not going to get anywhere with that. Personally, I think you really shouldn't pull for Nyx if your gear is going to look something like this. If it were me, I'd probably try and get the gear for these two first because they're much more widely applicable. When you have both Turgenev and Margrave, even when you're not using Nyx, you're getting a lot of mileage. Now, while I say this all for Abyss, the picture is painted a lot differently in Memorial Arena, so let's talk about that. So in Memorial Arena, we really can't run away from the fact that she's extremely gear dependent. I've tried Nyx a lot with lower gear and it just doesn't work well. If I can give her anything, it's that she's probably above average on Helm Maru. For most other bosses though, she's gonna need a lot more. But do keep in mind I'm really considering very low gacha setups and no gacha elf. So far, I'm not really happy with her budget memorial scores, and certainly this is subject to change as strategies develop, but I personally haven't found anything impressive. Like, Nyx really needs the starting SP because her damage outside of ult is just really bad. So essentially all of her Memorial Arena comps are going to use Lightning Empress lead, and if your Lightning Empress is not triple S, well you have tough luck. Now if we assume that you have all the gear that you actually need, then Nyx's performance is actually really good. She's going to get top scores on both Lobster and Helmaru, and she's also going to get some pretty good scores on a few other bosses as well. So a good thing with Nyx's team is that it actually does not overlap with other teams, which is really good. The other thing is that the team is extremely easy to execute. The second part of her ult has a time stop effect, much like the Herrscher of Sentience, so you're not going to find yourself jumping seconds at all. So with all that being said, let's actually establish whether or not she's worth pulling. So if we actually look at her performance in both Abyss and Memorial Arena, I would say if you're a top player, she's a very attractive pull. So for people who can't really guarantee her full set, I would be more careful about pulling her. Like I said earlier, there are solutions to the bosses that she covers already, and at minimum you need an Ice Scythe or you're really going to have some trouble. So for my own Valkyrie priority, I would probably put her above SN and below DA. The other thing to consider is the fact that MiHoYo always releases a meta-changing Valkyrie in July. We've seen this in the past every single year without fail. So I have seen people say to skip this Valkyrie just to make sure that they don't miss out on the July Valkyrie. Now I kind of agree with this. I feel like if you want to be safe and you can't really afford to whale in July, then you should just skip for now and just be sure that you're not missing out on something crazy in July. And then let's just say that the July Valkyrie is a bust. Well, you still have the crystals that you held on to. It's fine, right? This is the safe play, and I think this is the play that you should take if you're free to play. Okay, now with all that being said, I hope this was helpful, and if there's anything specific you want to know about Starchasm Nyx, I'll try my best to answer, and I'll see you guys in the next one.